Good afternoon again, everyone. Doug Livermore, Director of External Communications.
Is that your title?
Yeah, I know.
I thought you were the treasurer. What happened?
No, I'm the treasurer for that other organization.
I got to keep up better with the association. What happened?
Well, I can assure you I wasn't embezzling any funds. All right. Well, so without further ado, now that we got that out of the way, it's my distinct privilege and honor to introduce Chris Miller here, a longtime friend and mentor. Obviously I got to go through the obvious stuff here. Chris was born and raised in Iowa, where God.
Anybody from Iowa? Sorry.
Yeah,
Remember
yeah.
Eisenhower used to go to each, that great photo right before D-Day, the paratroopers going in. He never found somebody that was from his hometown.
That was Aberdeen.
Yeah, well, I guess not a lot of volunteers like in Eisenhower. From Iowa, okay.
So let's see, Chris joined the reserves in '83, commissioned in '87, then proceeded to spend 27 years doing God knows everything in the special infantry and special operations community. Was both in the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq. Left the Army in 2014. However, of course, couldn't give up the life and stayed involved. When I first ran into Chris, he was contracting over in Solic, and I was contracting on the other side of the house.
And we were making good money then.
We were making good money.
Then we went into the government.
And then we went into the government.
What would we think?
Chris, of course, wasn't done serving under the Trump administration. Let's see if I can capture all the titles, because you were like changing every 5 minutes.
Nobody cares.
Deputy Director of CT over at the National Security Council. Then you came over to be the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations and Combating Terrorism over in Solic, which I rejoined the team when I came over from the Intel side of the house to the Special Ops side of the house. I know, right? Let's see. Then you spent a brief period of time as the acting Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations and Low Intensity Conflict. Then you went through that nightmare. Actually, you did a really good job at that confirmation hearing. We were all in the office cheering him on.
That other guy just got hammered.
Yeah, that's
poor
true.
Guy that was working for Bill Barr.
It did help, yeah.
Yeah, it was like, the fun thing now with modern technology, you have your cell phone in there, right? So people are live streaming like, wow, sucks to be that dude sitting next to you. He's a bullet magnet. And I'm just like, yeah. And I just sat there quietly and I hope that crazy guy from Portland doesn't scream at me. He screamed at the other guy.
He did scream at the other guy. Yeah, so Chris sailed through his confirmation hearing to be the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, which I think you maybe unpacked your box there before you got tagged to say, hey, we need an acting Secretary of Defense. And you came back over to the building, and it was a wild ride.
You want to take it from there?
Yeah, without further ado, Chris Miller.
Scraping the bottom of the barrel, y'all. I'll tell you what. It's going to sound cliche, but good to be back home with freaking Green Berets, man. Because I'll tell you what, it was so funny. 9 November, the president calls, right? No, well, his assistant called. And I'm like having the best day of my life. I'm like, there was word on the street that Esper was going to get fired. He was the previous Secretary of Defense. He was the Secretary of Defense. This has been going on for months. And the word on the street was that they were going to fire him at 12:01 after the election, win or lose, because they were pissed at him. And there were in D.C., you don't know what's going on. There's all sorts of BS. Hey, be ready for a call. I'm like, what's that mean? Just be ready for a call. So, hey, I'll just be clear with y'all. My wife, she watches MSNBC Morning Joe every day. And I'm like, ooh, this shit's gonna sting. I'm painful independent, right? But I'm like, I learned the hard way with your spouse. When I decided to go Special Forces without telling her, she still holds that against me. Thought it'd probably be a good idea. I read her on up front. I'm like, hey, honey, there's some stuff going on. It's D.C. Who knows what's going on? Just want to make you aware. No phone call comes that day. And I'm like, thanks. Get through the week. And I'm at the National Counterterrorism Center. And I show up to work that Monday. It was a Monday. Like, this is seared in my brain. And I'm sitting there, and I decided, like, the government, as you all know, everybody still wears their ties and their coats, and the women have to be in, like, very formal clothes. And I was like, you know, we need to, like, update that. We probably need to go business casual. So I decided to lead by example. So show up that morning, driving my wife's car. It's not a Mini Cooper. I'm just telling you it's not. Well, okay, it is. And yeah, so here I am in my wife's Mini Cooper. I'm wearing, fortunately, I threw a blue blazer in the back, but I decided to lead by example. What I was going to do was I had a button-down shirt, khaki pants, no tie, and like a really bad pair of shoes. Sitting there, birds are singing, drinking the best cup of coffee I've ever had in my life. It's like, this coffee is so good. And you know how you have those moments of like clarity, and I'm reading the intel, because that's what you do at the start of the day, and it's just like making connections, like synapses popping. It's like, wow, I'm good at this. Phone rings, and it's pretty early, and the kid comes in and goes, hey, sir, it's the White House. And like the blood drains from my face. Bowels got a little watery. And I'm like, oh, man, well, you can't say you're not there, right? So's, hello. They're like, you need to get to the White House like yesterday. And I'm like, no. They're like, yes. I'm like, but no. So I don't have a tie. President Trump, as you know, like cares about appearance. I'm like, ooh, man. I'm wearing khaki pants, bad shoes, socks that don't match, and I don't have a tie. Borrowed a tie, got in my wife's Mini Cooper, buzzed downtown, and they pre-screen you, of course, so I go to like the fixer, and he goes, hey, the president's going to offer you the job of replacing Secretary Esper. And are you going to accept? You know, you're not going to go to the Oval Office and say, hey, thanks a lot, I really appreciate the opportunity, but no. And, you know, you had that moment of clarity, right? I mean, and you're like, it's about a country, right? I'm an independent, but I don't care, and also I'm a Green Beret. And, you know, you answer the damn call. And, you know, so I went in the Oval Office with my crappy shoes. And you know how you're like, you're obsessed about silly stuff at a moment like this, right? Like, oh man, I hope he doesn't see my crappy shoes. I should have like bought some new shoes, but I'm cheap and because I'm a Green Beret. And went in there, you know, the president goes, hey Chris, I'm sure you didn't know my name prior. They probably had a 3x5 card. I'd obviously, and I'll tell tomorrow night at the keynote, I'll tell about how that happened. And he goes, hey, firing Esper. You want the job? You know, what do you do at that point? Like, nah, I'm good, man. You know, it's like, I'm having a good run. I literally was 3 months from receiving, I was at the National Counterterrorism Center. I was 3 months from receiving my second pension. You know, I had my military pension, and then I was like, you have to get 4 or 5 years as a federal employee, John, you know, I don't know. And I'm like, damn, I'm pretty close. I can get another pension. It's going to be small, you know, $400 a month or something. I'm like, pin money. My wife won't know about it. You know, freaking buy a car, buy the Rolex watch that you all are wearing that I never got because I wasn't a Vietnam veteran. And, you know, Ish, you got your doggone Rolex? Yeah, I never got a Rolex. We got these crappy Sunto like GPS watches, and if you can find a battery for those, let me know because I've got like 4 of them that are sitting there. You guys get Rolexes and stuff, and
Jan got a Rolex.
what?
Jan got a Rolex.
Of course he did, and so you know you take the doggone job, right? And the funniest thing was, like, we'd lost the election, and I did my math. Like I got the calendar out. Like, you know, I'm a Ranger school. Like I do my short timer calendar. Like 73 days. damn Green Beret, I can stand on my head for 73 days. Literally, I literally know we can stand on our heads like for 73 days. And I was like, yeah, I got this. And then it was pretty calm. I mean, not much went on. The Iranians didn't threaten to like start a war. January 6th, nothing major. But you know what? Two things. One, it was so funny. You come out of the Pentagon, you got all these ash and trash people, carrying your stuff, and you get in like they have this huge like column of up armored vehicles that they should be with our soldiers overseas, not Pentagon, but that's neither here nor there. And you get in there, and that's the first time you get to look at your phone, and invariably, you'd have all these people that you hadn't met in 30 years that like just popped up on the net, like, hey, so I'm working for some whatever, thanks, and then invariably there would be an email or a text from somebody from the regiment, from the Special Forces Regiment, that would be like, wow, sucks to be you. But hey, we got your back. And that just summed up the regiment, right? It was like that brutal like honesty and morbid sense of humor, right? That you guys have all lived before, as well as, just like, no, we stick together and we take care of each other. And I'll tell you what, I knew that, and people would call and send me emails and say, that's the only thing that got you through it, is knowing that you had people that were supporting you and were serious about it.
Damn right, Chris.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was something. Anybody know Al Knox? Is he here? He's probably he was one of my first company commanders, and he used to have this lithograph behind his desk, and it was like the Capitol with a Green Beret with climbing gear and ropes. Most people have that one where they're in that one, the 10th group one, where everybody's sitting there looking at the, around the table, getting ready to go. What's that?
The map.
Yeah, the map, right? And I love that one, man. I'd love to get that one. He's got this one. I'm like, wow, like, or Major Knox, like, you think that sends the wrong message about like the regiment and like the Capitol, and we're going to go storm it? And he's like, what? No, I just like the, and it was amazing. And people thought that when I came in, and the team we brought in, that they thought there was going to be a military coup. They thought that we were somehow part of some benign or some sort of horrible plot to overthrow the government. And, it really, Al's photo or his lithograph, I reminded myself of that. I was like, ooh, damn. And you're like, how could people think that? How could people think that? Like, we were raised and trained and educated, and we had wonderful mentors and like many of you here, like, no, this is about America, And I was just like so really disappointed in that narrative. And you're like, I had good luck. I only had a couple people that kind of blew up on me, like, you're a neo-Nazi, but when you're not, killing, kittens and kicking dogs, when are you going to overthrow the government? There were only a couple people that did that I knew. But, I always went back to my roots of being a Green Beret. And, Ish, you're here, and a lot of you set the tone, you set the culture, you set the legacy of the Special Forces Regiment. And that, I had this, it's great, man. I did this podcast recently where this crazy woman, I was doing it for my sister, and a friend of my sister's, and she's on MSNBC too. She's like the Watergate prosecutor or something. She was involved in that one day. She's got a book out and all that. And, the interview started with the same thing, like, okay, so when you work to overthrow the government, how did you sleep at night? I mean, that was like the starting question. I lost it, and I just started cursing. And got him back on, they're like, I think we have to start over. That's not going to really work for our podcast. And she said, like, weren't you, like, intimidated? Weren't you afraid of being the Secretary of Defense? And I literally was like, I'm a damn Green Beret. I mean, like, come on. Like, you know, it's like, do you know anything about our military? And do you know anything about our Special Forces Regiment? It's like, it really disappointed me, you know? It's like, come on, we all have lost friends. We've been responsible, many of us, for losing friends and horrible wounding of our people. You're like, the worst freaking day in the Pentagon doesn't even make the top 100 from being in the regiment, you know? It's like, come on, let's get a little balance here. That's why I think Special Forces Association is just so doggone critical to helping with the education of our society. And only 6% of people serve these days, right? The population is only 6% veterans. I mean, half of you are here. So, you know, I just think that that's a really, really important role for what you guys are doing. I could just keep talking, or does anybody want to ask any questions? Just raise your hand. I have no internal audit. I was raised and trained by you all. I speak truth to power. That's what I do, and I don't tap dance. It's painful at times, but why change now? I mean, what the hell? That's what we do. Happy to take any questions, or else I could just keep telling damn stories. I mean, I can go all night. Sir?
What agenda did you bring with you?
Man, I couldn't have planted that one better. All right, so I made it funny. I thought it was really funny, right? I was like, hey, the bar's pretty low. You know, no military coup, no major war, and no troops in the streets beating up Americans. The third one, nobody kind of cared about at the end. But the other two I was serious about, and of course it got blown out of context. So had four things we wanted to do. One was, man, I told you about the craziness of the whole, like, the military could start a coup. That offended me so deeply. Like, our military will never do anything contrary to the Constitution. It never will. And the fact that people actually said that, and they're like, are you gonna put out a statement reminding the armed forces to not, you know, have a military coup? I'm like, no. That would be the most offensive thing humanly imaginable to those people that are in the force. That would indicate that all of our training, our education, our testament to the Constitution is somehow is wrong. That, if I was in the field, if I was a soldier in the field, I would be so offended if my leaders, like, said, hey, by the way, you know, if you missed it, don't have a coup. I mean, come on. That's like the going in position, right? Like, hey, I'm a soldier. So that was number one. So number one is, like, we got to bring this thing down to a low Earth orbit. Let's get everybody focused on just doing their jobs and not the stupid crap that's going on in the media. I have a new thing. I call it the media entertainment complex because it's just so perverted. So that was number one. Number two was, I firmly believe in the goal of ending the war in Afghanistan. Don't care. It ended tragically. That was not the plan. Does anyone here think that what occurred in August was preventable? I mean, listen, we all have served. We all have worked with Indige. We all knew. That's why this narrative, like, what? I can't believe they fell that fast. I mean, you're like, all right, train how you're going to fight. We trained them exactly how, you know, the big army wanted. Like, hey, so when you make contact, you're going to get air support, you get fire support, and then don't worry about logistics because you're going to get bullets are going to come in. Medevac, we got that taken care of. And we did that for a lot of years, right? I mean, and so they're like, hey, we got this. And I don't care. I mean, they effective enough, stalemate. I mean, it was back and forth, good enough. And then all of a sudden, like one day, we're like, hey, we're done. See ya. Now you're like private Ahmed out there in Herat, you know, and you're like, okay, so yeah, sure, I'll go into Herat. I'll give him a talking to, make contact, and they're like, okay, start calling for fires. Nothing. I mean, what did we expect was going to happen? It was so predictable, right, for anybody. I go on all day about that. Number 3, so I was firmly supportive of ending the war in Afghanistan. Does anybody disagree? I did. The idea was we were going to keep a stay-behind force there, a small stay-behind force that was going to do counterterrorism. It was going to be 850 people, and it was going to be at one location, Chris, you know, it was your folks. That was the idea. And I was like, yeah, we can live with that. That'll keep Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda will not be able to mass. That's the only thing we need. If they mass, we'll have enough intelligence there that we'll know it and we'll strike. We'll either hit them with our special operators, or we'll hit them from the air. I was like, yeah, we can do that. And the idea was like, oh no, these are going to be just security cooperation people. They're not really commandos, wink, wink. I mean, we know how to do this. We're not stupid. We've done it before. So that was the idea. You know, we took the damn country down with 200 people. I really kind of felt like we could have kept it together with 200. We decided on 800. It was good to have a little, you know, little margin. So that was the second thing. Third thing was, it was like, man, you know, give voice to the members of the armed forces, veterans and their families that are not being heard. And I'll give you the classic example. For my war in Afghanistan, for some of our wars in Afghanistan, we put in a forward operating base in Karshi-Khanabad in Uzbekistan. It was a toxic waste dump, and it was a nuclear dump that the Soviets had like just basically like, what do we do with this doggone, or, you know, uranium-232? Put it in Karshi-Khanabad. They're like, hey, you need a forward operating base? We got one for you. And it's all right, you know. We all volunteered to serve, and we understood the hazards of our chosen profession, et cetera, et cetera. But I do believe that the government has a responsibility when something bad happens to take care of our people, and nothing was being done. And it reminded me of your war with Agent Orange, where people were, for our Vietnam veterans, where they're like, we got to study it some more. The Association of Medical Practitioners of, you know, South, like, Columbia or whatever, haven't certified that, you know, it's like, no, man, we're not going to do that one again. I learned from y'all. We're not doing that one again. So we try to do that, and also Gold Star families. Families of people that we lost, they weren't getting well taken care of. Oh, it's going great, it's going great. And then you hear these horrible stories. So we did that. And then the last thing we did was we're like, hey, man, I'm a Green Beret. They were stupid enough to put me in this position. We're going to go ahead and try to get a little respect for the regiment. I'm like, yeah, you guys, you know, you guys have done some heavy lifting over the years, and I thought we deserved a seat at the table. And I'll talk about it tomorrow night. So against the advice of everyone, we went ahead and tried to elevate the importance of special operations. And then, you know, and actually, it hasn't been rolled back near as far. I figured as soon as the Biden administration would come in, they'd like, oh, everything they did, like, bad, get rid of it. They haven't. They did a little stuff, but it was like put down the marker for the future, because I felt I had an obligation as a member of the regiment and representing you all, not to. I mean, what kind of hypocrisy would that be? Like, I used to bitch like nonstop when I was younger about how screwed up the Pentagon was, and how, like, I don't understand why we don't do blah blah blah. And I was like, man, that would be pretty bad. My friends here would never let me hear the end of it, because it all comes down to like not, you know, being made fun of by your peers, as you all know. So that's what we did, man. All right, anything else? Yes, sir. Mind if I have a little cocktail? I'm not, yes. Oh, no, yeah, I know. I was like, oh no, I'm just getting nervous right now, that's all. Nah. Hey, man, moved up, like, long-standing Hawkeye. There was a guy named Bob Cummings was our head coach. we had the longest losing streak in NCAA history. And then Hayden Fry, this Texan, comes in, just brilliant guy, and changed the world. So I knew that we would lose to Purdue last week. I absolutely, like, we beat Penn State, we're number 2 in the country. I'm like, enjoy the week. It's great, but we're Iowa. And I'll tell you what though, I had one, Hayden Fry does just like Special Forces does, or Kirk Ferentz is the head coach. He never gets 5-star recruits. He gets kids from the heartland, and he trains them. He trains them. He is patient with them. He mentors them, and he coaches them. And by their 4th and 5th year, they perform at a really high level. I'm like, that's kind of what we do in the regiment. So, a huge fan. So tell him to go pack sand. I don't want to talk about that. All right, Iowa wrestling. So, yes, sir, I'll get to you. We had this brilliant 18 X-ray. It's one of those kids, much like during the Vietnam era, you could get into Special Forces, pass through the selection, and enter. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to offend some people, I don't care. Some of the old timers were like, this is the worst thing that's ever going to happen to the regiment. Like, oh my gosh, you have to go suffer in the regular army for 4 years before you can ever even think about becoming a Green Beret. And this kid was University of Missouri wrestler, NCAA. He wasn't a champion, and then ended up coaching and was a teacher, a public school teacher, and then in 2001 decided that he would join the service. And I was like, wrestler? You know Dan Gable? He goes, do I know Dan Gable? I'm like, Sergeant, you have a task. Get Dan Gable to the 5th Special Forces Group and bring the team, and we'll do some Special Forces stuff, and then they can run us through some of their reps. And it was going great. He's like, I can do that. And then Dan Gable decided that he would go back in as like, I don't even know you can do this. Like, the head coach hired him to be like the emeritus coach. And he's like, hey, I'm back coaching again. I can't go. So Dan Gable literally is the greatest American since, I put him up there with Ronald Reagan. You? Dan Gable is unbelievable. Yeah, lost one match.
I'm just giving you a break.
All right. Yes, sir. Please save us from this diabolical person, just diarrhea of the mouthing.
So, first off, thank you. The question is, because you didn't have a lot of time to really affect any real positive change within the Pentagon and the Pentagon culture, what I'm wondering, through your eyes and your experience, when you're looking at all those generals, admirals, et cetera, they're drinking the Kool-Aid, a lot of them. And so what was some of your assessment?
Somebody give him this question? That's my thing. So that's my thing that I'm taking on is like, I'm sorry. We lost. It was technically, for my generation, we only lost one war. It was the War on Terror. But technically, most people think of it as 2 wars. We lost in Iraq. I was told, like, we haven't really lost in Iraq yet. Give it another 20 years. So, okay, all right. The first time we lost when we left in 11, and ISIS, came back in. And then, like, I don't know, we lost. You can argue with me, come up, throw stuff at me. We lost in Afghanistan. We lost that war. And I'm like, why? And, like, somebody needs to be held accountable. And I got to tell you, remember, don't let me put words in the mouths of our Vietnam veterans, but I think the primary lesson from there was like the politicians were making all the decisions. The military kind of was like, all right, we got to go with whatever LBJ and shit says. And this war, my generation's war, we got a couple generals here, you can argue with me, we had carte blanche. And, you know, George Bush the second, well, probably the first with Colin Powell was like, here's the mission, go do it, right? It's like, got it. And it worked, kind of worked. So we weren't restricted, the military wasn't restricted. And I've already noticed that there's this kind of trend, like it wasn't us, it was the State Department. It was like point and blame. I'm like, I think we have to do an honest assessment. And there were 4-star generals that made decisions and gave guidance on this war that was absolutely flawed. And that's all right, because we all know war is a competition and unpredictable stuff happens. I got that, right? I mean, but you know, what's going on with our training, our education, and our selection process that for people to get to those 4-star ranks? And you know, we've got to look at that. I got to tell you straight up, there's something completely out of whack. And we have got, like, that's my thing that I'm worried about the future. I try to be positive, you know, because there's enough negativity in the world. But that's kind of my passion project, is like, we've always been great in the regiment's the best about it, right? Like, you know, how many times did you go on a mission and you're like, went great, right? And then some old crusty warrant officer or E-8 would be like, you know, you made that radio call 15 seconds too late. And you're like, what? No, we can't, you know, we did great. But that's the spirit of the, you know, our Special Forces Regiment. And the Army used to be the same way. Remember going to, I mean, we used to have these Chinese self-criticism things at the National Training Center and the Joint Readiness Training Center, where it was like, here we go. I'm not seeing it right now. I don't know. Is anybody else? I mean, I'm just like, what happened? I think we've fallen in love with the press about like, oh, it was a great antidote to what you guys experienced in Vietnam, you know, where the military is held in high regard and whatnot. But I think I'm worried that they kind of drank the Kool-Aid. They're like, what? No, we always are trying to do better. You never come off a mission. Well, you can once, and then Chief's going to yell at you. You know, so I'm really kind of worried about that. What do you think? I'd love input on that one, but I'm planning to kind of go public on that one a little bit. Sir?
Yeah, along those same lines, then, just as you go forward, what can we do, all these individuals thinking about these thoughts here, like, how can such a thing happen? How can we hold our military complex culture accountable? Because we know this is no way to get it. We know that this is ridiculous ball dropping. How can we hold these people accountable? Folks that can say, yeah, I'm not worried about it.
I just learned from y'all about just speak truth to power and be analytical and just let don't politicize it, just follow the facts. And I got to tell you, my daughter is, I got middle kids, 25, 26, I don't know how old she is. I wasn't there for her birth. I was working. I mean, my daughter knows more about Harry Styles and like fashion than she does. I don't think she could find Afghanistan on a map, honestly. Love her to death, you know. And man, she came home one night and goes, what's going on in Afghanistan, Dad? I was like, shit show. Yeah. And she got angry. She goes, you know, I voted for that guy. And I'm not going political on you. I'm just giving you one perspective of a young person. And she said, that was my generation's war. And I'm like, man, I never saw you out. No, she was my kid, obviously. But I hadn't thought of it that way. And she goes, you know, we have sacrificed so much of our personal liberties, you know, having to take our shoes off, fucking, did I say that out loud? Going to the airport. And she goes, you know, that's not how it was supposed to end. I was like, what? I like, this is my daughter? Like, she's giving me this Kissingerrian description of something that's going on. And she goes, I'm not giving you her name. So she goes, I'll never vote for that guy again. I mean, it couldn't have ended. This is a tragedy. So, you know what? I just think, just let the facts speak for themselves. I think Special Forces Association, I know you try to avoid advocacy, and I appreciate that. I think it's about education. We talked about 6% of the population serves. What was it when you Vietnam vets, when you came home, what in Congress, it was probably 50% of Congress people, I'm guessing. We got the Google now, we could find out here, I'll find out. Yes?
Just as an example, the last time America went to war as a nation was World War II.
All right.
Everybody was on rationing, everybody supported, until we get back to that point where the nation takes responsibility.
I'm with you. So that, I'm with you. And you know, Colin Powell passed, I don't know what your thoughts are. I kind of thought he's full of stuff when he was like, oh, we had this theory of war, you know, like American people have to be inside, overwhelming force. I was like, we got Green Berets. We can do stuff.
It's not my job.
Right. So I've kind of come around. Yeah, sir, he had his hand up. Yes, sir.
Mark Dickens, Jacksonville, Florida.
Jacksonville, what's up, Mark? Chapter 88. I'm learning.
I think it's possible that we may have to wait 10 or 20 years to actually find out when or who's or Afghanistan. There's an infection of our staying place.
Yeah, my wife told me the same thing. She said you need to dial that crap back, man. You're way out of control.
Everything that Biden and Hoover are doing correctly.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, the best line I heard was if their competence matched their confidence. Listen, in national security, I'm bipartisan. This is about America. I don't care about all like the articles and all. I want them to do well, because if they do well, America does well. But gosh darn, I mean, what the heck happened with that travesty in Afghanistan? I mean, that was totally preventable. Now, I got to tell you, the policies that they're following on China are basically like take the Trump name off that, put Biden on there. So I think there's remarkable continuity if we could just get beyond the hyper-partisan BS. I mean, what? What do you think? I mean, I'm just up here freaking saying silly stuff. I'll tell you what, though, these hostages being held in Haiti right now, I mean, I went off the other night. I just lost my crap. I was like, you know, when we were in charge, they'd all be dead right now. Because, I mean, that's like, you're not allowed to take Americans hostages. You can, but we're going to come kill you. Like, I mean, that's kind of the going in position. And so that's why there is a little disconnect right now, and I might have said some inappropriate things to some press people from the New York Times where I said, wow, so you're giving them a pass. Like, this isn't even hard. Like, your old unit you did training exercises that are harder than going to Haiti and rescuing our 14 Americans. I mean, come on, what's going on? I don't know. Sorry, sir. Yes, sir, you're up. You guys.
Talk a little bit about the threat, the current threat.
Oh, from where?
China.
Jeez. I'll talk about it tomorrow night. I've got to tell you, man. I think we're taking it the wrong way. I think irregular warfare, special operations capabilities are the way to go. I think we play directly into their narrative. Like when we're like, we're going to build all these huge aircraft carriers at $14 billion a piece, the F-35. I think they're like, so like totalitarian governments fear instability, and they fear losing control of their population, right? And we're playing right into their narrative. They're like, hey, like, we'd love to be nice to the Americans, but look at what they're doing. They're fixing to attack us. We're playing into their, and I think all of us are Green Berets. We're like, indirect approach. Yeah, don't attack your enemy's strategy head on. Use a different approach. That's what we do. So I think there's huge vulnerability in China that we are not exploiting because we're just doing exactly what they want us to do. And, we're bankrupting the country, our country, not theirs. They're like, shit, we'll just, like, we're China, like, we just make more stuff. And, like, gosh darn, I think we could you think we'd get their attention if Walmart just said we are not buying anything from China? I think we'd collapse their economy. I think we would, actually. But, all right, so I personally believe that we're playing in their hands and we need to use irregular warfare approaches, psychological operations, information operations. We need to use like special operations that we're familiar with, and economic tool is the key tool, and so OSS we need to reestablish. Sir, whoever.
What's next for Chris Miller? Where you going?
Man, I've never been a planner. Anybody? Just what? I remember like Green Beret. Yeah, well, I remember Green Beret stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. Then I'm like, somebody goes, hey, there's this interview process. I'm like, oh, I might as well go. I don't have a plan, none. My plan is actually only 3 things that I'll go public on. One is veterans issues. I'll like anybody call me, like I'll help in any way I can. I really am passionate about hostages that are being held overseas, because I think we can do more. There's a couple things on that. And I've kind of become more public. And I really think that your point about, I think the military and the senior officers probably need to be reminded that they support the Constitution, and it's not about them. But I'm just like, yeah, and then the general gets up. Yes, HB, sir. I'm sorry about taking your truck in Iraq that time. I know you're still upset.
Hey, Doug, your point about the generals and their position.
I said 4 stars, brother.
Yeah, I know.
You should.
You don't have to worry about that.
Back to your point. He should have been.
So, sometimes Senate makes it sound like everybody in the military, all the great soldiers I served with are rapists, are racist, and don't care about it. But none of that leadership speak up in the Pentagon and says that's not true. It's less than 1% of our force. But they make it sound like the young men and women that come and wear the uniform, and just not soft, but come and wear the uniform, are terrible people, and they're not. And so, do you see the disconnect from where you saw it now?
I did not when I was up there for those 73 days. I have seen a subtle change in so as soon as the military bought off on this infatuation with the political leadership, we sold our soul at that point. And everybody's like, no, man, it's all good. I mean, going to football games, it's all great. It's good. And it was good. It was good. It wasn't malice. But, it's the boiling frog thing. And now all of a sudden I've noticed a subtle change with some of the politicians that we are now the enemy. And we allow that to happen. And that's why I'm like, who here put their career on the line and said something to somebody over the years? Every single person here did. I guarantee it. Because you're like, this is the right thing to do. I'm not seeing it right now. And that's what really bugs me. Is like, who's going to walk on this one? Because it's that important. And, I understand, like, you're probably not going to get a good board position at Lockheed or Northrop Grumman or whatever. Okay, but I don't know. I thought I was raised differently, but I guess I was just stupid. I guess I was just dumb. What, you disagree, man?
What do you think about the fallout of that Marine colonel that was jailed because of his...
I loved what he wrote. He said, you know what, if I was in a position above me, I'd court-martial me too. He knew exactly. It was a matter of character. He knew how it was going to end. What do you think? I mean,
So it's different though. He can stand up and call on his sword. I admire that. But what if 20 the gun he's under he doesn't? And that unit's in effect.
yeah.
He's got to stand there and be a leader for his men and women that serve under him.
Next man up. Who said that? Raise their hand. I was thinking that shit too. I was like, I thought the way we developed this thing, the whole thing, and that's why I never took like anything serious. You take your job, we all did, enormously seriously. But we also knew the whole thing was designed like, if you go down, Spec 4 Jones, next man up. Well, oh my shit, he hasn't been to list training, don't make any difference. So what, counter argue, come on, General Gillen, give it up.
I think, I admire the fortitude is that young Lieutenant Colonel Marine showed was incredible. The fortitude is, but, what if, there's still a responsibility to stand tall, and we're non-political. We are to defend, uphold.
If he would have stopped with his initial statement, but then he kind of went to the trailer, that video where he's in the trailer like cleaning his guns, and you're kind of like, oh man, it would have been better if you just stuck with your. But he didn't ask me for any public relations advice. But at the end of the day, man, the guy had some moral courage, I think. I don't know what y'all think, but he's gonna, 18 years, he's a battalion commander, and he went out and like, whoa, man. So maybe, yes, sir. You guys are like, make him stop speaking. I don't blame you.
I remember listening to President Roosevelt speak before Congress when World War II started. And a lot of my friends, 14-year-old friends, went into the service. And the reason I think that we actually won the war was the fact that we went in for the duration plus 6 months. Since that time, all we've done is deployment. And when you go to deployment, you don't go to win. You just go there to get through it, and then it's the next guy's problem. My question is, since my family is from the Middle East, has anybody in the Pentagon in the last 20 years read either Middle Eastern or Afghan history?
Gosh darn. Obviously not the people that matter. So let's see. The point, I don't know. How many people walked through a team room and had like the like all the piles of books that everybody's reading? But you asked about the Pentagon. I can't answer.
Last class we gave, I would give on Okinawa to SF or Marines or SEALs, anybody going to Vietnam, was customs, cultures, and
Right.
of South Vietnam.
Huh.
The lawyer gave the last one, he said, don't kill the prisoner. So the idea was you had to understand, you didn't touch a kid on the head because the spirits live in the head.
Yeah.
So if a kid gets sick, then you're involved. So nobody read Afghan history and, talked to the Brits or the Russians and realized these people never are going to sing Kumbaya together. They hate each other. They like each other.
Man, I thought the Green Berets did. I thought Green Berets had a pretty good feel. You guys done? Sorry. I thought the Green Berets did. And then back to your one-year tours, come on, did we learn, I thought that was one of the things we learned individual replacements during Vietnam was, didn't bring about unit cohesion. So what we did this time is we just magnified that problem, an order of 250 for an infantry company, and said, oh no, we'll just, the classic line about the Korea, yeah, we've been fighting Korea 70 whatever years, 1 year at a time. We did the same thing in Afghanistan. Special operations, I'm a shameless advocate, obviously, late in life, but I didn't think much of them early on. But, I thought we tried to do the right thing where we would do unit replacements back to the same places, and we kind of do that cycle so you stayed in the same place. We didn't do it always, but that was the idea. But then, all we did for Afghanistan, we fought a 20-year war 1 year at a time, 21-year wars. And so it came up one time, I remember, it was like, man, it was in Iraq, a bunch of you were there. We're like, that 3rd Infantry Division, that's the best infantry division in the Army. I'm telling you what, those kids were unbelievable. And yes, Don.
2003, we're in RPC, all you hear is, this is a marathon, not a
Man, I'm I'm preaching to the choir, man. I'm like, like you're in this thing until the end. And, Omar Bradley had a great line about your only way out is injury, death, or victory. You're like, ooh, that's kind of harsh. And he always talked about like there's always one more ridge line, there's always one more river to cross, And like people criticized that view, but I wonder the same thing. Like if we would have said like nobody goes home until this thing's in the W column, whether we would have taken a different approach. Those are the things I want to, as somebody asks, like, what are you doing next? Like, I want to actually try to sort some of that out so we don't make the same mistakes for the third time. Yes, sir. Anybody else? Okay, we're done. Sir, you were like, stop him from talking. We have functions. This is a Special Forces Association. This is a nightmare. Who invited that moron? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm a moron from Ohio. The Buckeyes.
I love me some Buckeyes. You guys.
We need more of you in this room, like Frank Moreau as the Secretary of State of Ohio with Special Forces, to ensure that we didn't have a
Hey.
avalanche there. When are you going to run for it?
I'm not. You brought up the point about what are you doing next, and I've got to tell you. So any doggone, yes, Doug, Jesus, you're going to ask me a question that I can't answer. I will support. I don't care who they are, any Green Beret that runs for office, or any special operator, because let's remember, there's some phenomenal people that don't have the Special Forces tab that served in cultural support units and some other things. So that's where that's my thing. Like, I'll support anybody. I think it's really important because I got to tell you, like, this next generation is really, really good. I mean, they're really good. They're smart as hell. They're just got great common sense. And my generation, we're just going to be a transitional generation. Like, we learn from y'all. We try to get this thing over, try to cut down the deficit. That's not working. But I got a lot, and I'm not being like halcyonic, like let's end on a good note. I'm not doing that. But I'll tell you what, these young people, this crazy 18 X-rays and crap that like Joe Kent out in Washington, number 2. We got a kid in Texas. I mean, like, yeah, that's so. I'm really hopeful. I am, man. I'm sorry, because I'm never going to say that it's lost. That's not what we do, right? Like, oh my gosh, like here the NVA are all around us. What do we do now? Well, we're going to keep fighting, right? I mean, we're just going to keep fighting. Well, it might not end well. Okay, but what else are we going to do? We're not going to quit. I mean, that's not what we do. That's not what the regiment's about. Yes, sir. Oh my gosh, I wasn't looking. I mean, I'm coming from the heart, man.
Not to extend this by no means, but
Yeah.
young recently retired GP, right? So
Yeah, man.
going along with what you were saying, the younger folks, yes, educated, great. Question is the government is it with the times of using special forces properly? So looking back, the OGs, listening to their stories, listening to all the flexibility that they had, and great on that. But for the future use of special forces, do you think it's being a little bit too conventionalized, or is it on the right track?
Yes, to the former, that I am worried about the regiment becoming dominated by conventional thinking. But I also know, because I was like, we did Afghanistan, like, these kids have no idea what it's like to deploy independently, to train and man, they're good. And they figured it out, I'm like, oh my gosh, all they've done are company and battalion deployments. They have no idea how to, work independently. They figured it out. I was worried. But as long as we keep attracting, like let's be honest, like, we're all a bunch of ne'er-do-wells, borderline criminals, probably, and you know, it's like, thank goodness there's a place in the military that they can serve. And they're really, really smart. And they'll figure it out. And you know, it's like, what do you think? I mean, you're closer to it than I am. Well, no, you retired when?
2 months ago.
Yeah, so I've been out since 14. What do you think? I much more appreciate your thoughts.
Well, when I signed the union in '05, the atmosphere, the flexibility that we had was quite loose, I would say, where we could do more. Towards the latter end of my career, especially on deployments, very restricted, and to me personally, I thought it was a bit too conventionalized.
I know you're going home, and thanks for staying. I mean, he was supposed to go home. You made a mistake by not going home tonight. So I'm going to share with you my thing from the keynote tomorrow night. And the point is, like, I got an idea. Like, special operations, let the general purpose forces, let the Navy and the Army and the infantry, you know, all those people, let them focus on China. Just let them do that. They love that crap. They love like their matrix and like, this is how we're gonna synchronize our efforts, and just give special operations the rest of the world. Give us all the stuff nobody wants to do. Like, you know, the general purpose force, they hate counterinsurgency. They're like, oh man, they hate that crap, right? They hate this like low visibility, small footprint. They hate that. No, we do a battalion. What's the answer to the problem in Mozambique right now? Infantry battalion from the 82nd Airborne Division. So what's the it's actually a brigade, because brigade's now the unit of action. It's a brigade. We're like, no, we only need like 20 people there. It's a brigade. Let them just do Indo-Pacific, and let the regiment, we'll take care of the rest of the world. We're going to send A-teams out just like we've done in the past. And, you know, we're going to just go back to the same place. Like, and you're going to, you know, oh my gosh, you guys that worked in Indonesia back in the day, you know, it's like, oh, what do we own that country, you know? It's like everybody in leadership, when the thing went south, and what was it-ish? It was like 90, I can't remember the year. It's like, oh, hey, Green Beret, you know the place? Oh yeah, I know the Minister of Defense, let me call him. I mean, let's go back to that. That's what I think the regiment should do in this, back to your point about China and great power competition and whatnot. Like, man, so that's where I wish we had the courage, and that's what I just offer. I hope, like that, back to the question about the role of the association back here, is like, you know, you don't want to be overbearing because you don't want to become politicized, and you don't want, but let's just keep reinforcing, like, hey, chirp, chirp, there is an answer to your problem, like in Venezuela. It's, well, it's probably a bad example, but as Green Berets did, they tried. Who trained them anyhow? So to answer your question, I know you got to go home, man. I'm just like, and number two, we need to pull out it. We need to set up the OSS again, and we need to pull out of the. Sorry, you're going to hear this again tomorrow night because it's in my speech. We need to set up the OSS. We need to pull special operations out of the conventional, out of the military. Like, they don't like us. Like, let's just be clear. They don't like us, and it's all right. It doesn't hurt my feelings. We just see things differently. Pull us out, make us an independent arm. Ish is going to yell at me when we're done, like, Chris, you're doing it again. But let's just go ahead and set up this new organization that consists of special operations, intelligence assets, economic. Remember, OSS had a huge role in economic warfare, picking targets like, oh, ball bearings. You know, ball bearings are really important. We should bomb all the ball bearing plants in Schweinfurt. Didn't want to be on the B-17 raid to that one, by the way, as we all know. So that's kind of where I am. And you asked about going forward. What I'm going to do is I want to advocate for, we need to update this thing, this national security thing. It's been great. It worked great during the interwar years, from the Cold War, Goldwater Nichols. It was great. But we got updated. It's not going to work for the next phase, and it's all right. So that's my passion. And OSS, let's take the regiment. Let's ditch them. We got to be independent. What do you think? All right, go back to San Antonio and start spreading the gospel. And nobody will be like, oh, I mean, people were like, what are you talking about? But I think that's where I really hope, I just hope we can change the narrative and we can talk about it. Yes, sir. Done? I'm done. Hey, man, what are you looking at me like stop talking? I'm fine, man. I don't like doing this. Oh, yeah, Doug, you close out. No, you got something, sir? Yeah, it was take them out of having to report through all these other schmucks and have them be direct report to the Secretary of Defense. And the idea was we were going to create a new organization. It was a con game I was running where we were then going to take all the orphans in the Department of Defense that no one cares about, like cyber. They say they care about them, but listen, in the world of national defense, if you're not a regional, if you're not an expert, well, I'm an expert on Poland. I'm an expert on, Colombia. They get all the promotions. Everybody loves them. And all the people that are the functional people that just do the work and aren't focused on politics, cyber, artificial intelligence, special operations, intelligence, additive manufacturing, security cooperation, like foreign military sales. I'm like, let's take all the orphans and let's give them a home that they love, and we're going to create on the down low the next OSS. And then we're going to do this weird thing where like, hey, Chief, you're really good at this stuff. You got a mastery for business. Like you started your own company while you were in the Army. That was kind of cool. Love it. That's what I'm like. That's Green Berets. Like, hey, we need you to go do this. And maybe if it requires us to promote you to colonel to get access to these meetings, we'll do that. Or maybe we bust you to E4, whatever the case may be. But let's think creatively, because that's always been the strength of the regiment. Okay, Doug, you.
So real quick, appreciate all your comments. I had a quick question. It should be really, really easy. It kind of ties together a number of these.
Back is killing me. Too
a
many
number of
jumps.
these themes. It may steal your thunder for tomorrow night, but I kind of want to tie together the worship of the generals and the admirals, the accountability for Afghanistan, the elevation of ASD Solik. What are your thoughts on civilian oversight of the Department of Defense and why that's important to kind of move the ball on some of these initiatives that you discussed?
So, I mean, I know they were founding fathers, and but that's just the way it worked then, because there weren't founding sisters. But let's not be hypercritical and be revisionist historians about they're flawed because we established this damn country because we were scared to death of the military and the power it had. And I gotta tell you, I think it holds up. And we've never been a country of a large standing military. I love me some citizen soldiers. I mean, that's our country, right? Well, Doug Livermore, you're just in the Maryland National Guard and you only work 1 weekend a month. Oh yeah, how many days did you work last year? As a part-time soldier, how many days did you work?
320 or so.
Yeah, so geez. My thing is this country was founded on the principle that we were fearful of a large standing force, the only thing that can actually threaten the republic. It really is. I mean, Social Security, I'm eligible soon. That's not a threat to the republic. OSHA probably has some issues with some of their regulations, but they're not a threat to the republic. The only people that can actually take over the government is the military. And I thought the founders were pretty good, and I thought we've done a really good job for 200, I'm bad at public math, for a lot of years. And I'm kind of worried now that this fact that we've allowed the military to kind of just say just kind of say whatever they want and get away with it. I mean, General Milley is a classic example. I mean, I thought that, I don't know. So the way I phrase it, I always go, well, if the reports are true, that's very troubling. But it's more than troubling. If he, was saying stuff, the ones that bother me, it's not the meeting with the Chinese. Well, if he told the Chinese, they're like, we'll call you. That's an ish. I mean, that's an ish. If he was holding meetings saying, hey, listen, the civilians, if somebody calls you to start a nuclear war, call me first. I mean, I really have problems with that. I mean, the chairman should never be the story. The chairman should never be the story. So I'm like, there's something out of balance right now. And it bothers me. And I think that we need to go back to our roots. I just believe that fundamentally. And I think, I think they're too big for their britches. And I think it's time that we take back control. Sorry. You guys can argue with me later. Thank you. Thanks for the time.